ability to advocate for their students, to advocate for their profession, and to make sure that Florida's public schools are among the best in the nation. Educators every day sacrifice so much to make sure that their kids, as they call them, their students, have what they need to succeed. And what we've seen from this administration over a period of time is a constant deflection of attention. It's ironic that here we are with the governor not even signing the budget for the 24-25 school year, which begins in less than a month. That budget year begins in less than a month. That he's already talking about the budget he wants to propose for the 25-26 school year. Why now? Is it because it turns out that the facts that we keep dealing with here in Florida don't match his narrative, and he wants to continue to repeat that narrative that just isn't true? The reality of it is Florida is facing the worst teacher and staff shortage we have ever seen, leading the nation in the number of teacher and staff vacancies we have in our public schools. We have seen a diversion of dollars away from our public schools, meaning that some school districts are actually talking about closing public schools, closing community, neighborhood, public schools. I didn't hear the governor talk about his solution to make sure that every community has a strong public school for every child. I also want to remind you that we have been calling on the legislature and the governor to increase funding for our public schools by $2.5 billion for the next 7 years so that we can move from the basement in this nation in funding for our schools to top 10, so that we can move teacher pay and staff pay to top 10 in the nation, so that we can make sure that every child is getting the education they deserve and need, that they have access to high quality professionals in the area of mental health, and so that they have the curriculum that excites them and engages them in their learning. All of that was missing from the governor's press conference today. So we want to make sure you hear what's really going on in our public schools. And so right now, I want to turn this conversation over to one of our students. Raina Atkins is a student from Robinson High School. And so I want her, if she would come off mute, turn on her camera to comment about what it's like being a student in Florida's public schools today. Raina?
Hello. I'm currently a rising senior at Robinson High School, and an experience that I've had is during my junior year in October, my math teacher unexpectedly left. He came in on a Friday and he said that he could not afford to teach at our school anymore because his car broke down and he was paying over $1,000 in tolls to get to our school because he lived in Riverview. So me and about 60 other juniors taking a pre-calc went without a teacher for about like 4 months until like January or February. I'm not like 100% sure. And we basically just went to class, did nothing every day. And when we finally did get a teacher, this was her first time teaching and she had no experience and she wasn't as well equipped to teach an advanced class. So most of us went into our AP exams feeling stressed because we didn't know the content. Because even though she taught us some stuff, by the time she got there, it was too late to teach us everything that we needed to know for our AP exams. So that was definitely something that was really stressful. And teachers also, two other teachers in the math department also left our school during that time.
Thank you, Raina. And what you're hearing from Raina is stories that we see play out over and over again in Florida's public schools because of this massive teacher and staff shortage. I'm actually going to ask Hope to turn on her camera and come off mute. Hope Adelson is a rising junior at Boone High School in Orlando. And I'm going to ask her to share her story. Again, as a student, notice we're putting students front and center at the beginning of this press conference, because at the end of the day, this should be about making sure that every child gets the education they deserve and need. So Hope, if you'll come off mute, and we're going to turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. So, I am a rising junior at Boone High School, and the first thing that comes to mind is that my teachers mean the absolute world to me. They are my role models, and they inspire me every single day. They have inspired me to take action in my community. They've inspired me to think critically. They've just inspired me to be a good person and a good citizen. And as Raina was saying, our AP pre-calculus teacher and AP stats teacher left halfway through the year, and these students were left without a teacher for weeks. And then they finally did get a teacher, but they were a whole unit behind. In an AP class, that's not really going to fly. These students need guidance, and with the course curriculum and just in everyday life, high school is hard. I think that's how it is. But teachers make it easier for us and inspire us to work hard. And these work ethics will bring into the world. Governor DeSantis, he's not worried about us. He's banned 2 of our classes. He's limited the ways we can dream, the courses we can take in college, what professions we can go into. He's more worried really about pushing his own political beliefs and using us students and the teachers to do that. And it's really frustrating because I've been born and raised in Florida. I love this state, but it's hard because I feel like I can't reach my full potential here anymore. I feel like I'm limited, and it's really saddening to me. And so I just wanted to thank all the teachers out there. You are making such a huge impact on our lives, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Hope. And thank you again, Raina. 2 students who are talking about the realities, the facts on the ground in our schools here in Florida. And next, I'm going to have Antonio White come forward from the United Teachers of Dade, the first vice president there. Antonio?
Thank you, President Spar. My name is Antonio White, the first vice president of United Teachers of Dade. I'm a 30-year business technology education teacher in Miami-Dade County, and I'm also a military veteran. But you know, today I was a little taken aback by the governor's remarks at this particular press conference. It seems to me that he has given us UTD to be able to live rent-free inside the governor's mind, as well as the Commissioner of Education. You know, right now we're facing a concerted effort between right-wing advocates trying to eliminate teachers' unions, trying to separate and divide us from our teachers. When, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am a 30-year educator. I'm not somebody that came in to support teachers. I am one of those teachers who stepped up to say enough is enough. You know, this governor has consistently fallen short in boosting funding here to move Florida up in the rankings. Currently, we rank 50th in teacher pay. From 48th, we actually came down 2 notches. The truth of the matter is that teacher salaries have simply declined each and every year in the state of Florida under this governor's administration. When considering inflation, teacher pay hasn't even caught up with rates in 2008. You know, the disinformation and misinformation campaign that we deal with in this state when it comes to protecting teachers' rights. I represent roughly 23,000 education professionals in Miami-Dade County alone. And those 23,000 workers are not looking to be at-will workers. When we look at the convergence of what this governor is doing, the laws that they're creating, the people who are pushing these laws, and how they're recklessly attempting to change the dynamic of working people in the state of Florida, we must stand up and do something about that. United Teachers of Dade for over 50 years now has been providing support for teachers and educational professionals in this state of Florida. And today is no different. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. The misinformation campaigns that you continue to sprue across across the state. When you come into town, you came into Florida about a week ago to talk about some of the other bad things you're doing. But right now, number one is how do we stop this train that's trying to disrupt the education of our children in the state of Florida. So today, there's a group of teachers who is going to give you some varying points of views to talk about some of the bad acting that our government is doing at this particular point. And make no mistake about it, they're not attacking United Teachers of Dade because of what we're not doing, ladies and gentlemen. They're attacking us because of what we are doing, which is protecting the lives and of families and children, not only they're the ones that teach, but those that are also in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Appreciate that. And so now I wanted to make sure we hear from a parent. Again, another group that was left out of the governor's press conference. And so for that, I'm going to turn it over to a parent, Damaris Allen from Hillsborough County. Damaris?
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I am not only a parent of 2 graduates of Hillsborough County Public Schools, but I'm also a graduate of public schools myself. And being a graduate of the same high school my kids attended, I'm able to see the difference in the educational opportunities I had as a student and that they had as students as well. When I went to high school, I took an AP French class, and my son many years later, took that same class. As a result of lack of investment in funding and in teachers and ensuring our kids have opportunity to succeed, my AP French class had about 24 students. But that same class my student took many years later had 36 students in that. So many in that class. So many parents are seeing classes that are full of students where students don't have time, parents don't have, teachers don't have time to give those students individual attention they need. As you heard from the students, many of our classes are being taught by long-term subs. My child lost several of his favorite teachers. His AP US history teacher, he used to get in the car every day and say, I love AP US history so much. And one day he got in the car brokenhearted because that teacher had decided that they needed to leave the profession. And that had been a teacher that was a favorite of all the students throughout their years. We are failing to address the real issues our students are facing. We are not giving them opportunities to be set up for success. We are not providing mental health services that they so desperately need. We are not providing them with college and career counselors, extracurricular activities, all of these things that give our students a rich and diverse experience. So many of our schools have had to cut back on music education. And if you know anything about music education, you know that it not only fuels the ability to love music and think creatively, you know that it makes you a better student in math and science. So I urge the governor not to use our students as political pawns, but to invest in them, to give richly to public schools, to stop divesting in public schools and sending it to private institutions that do not have a track record of success like our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Damaris. And now we're going to hear from one of our education staff professionals. It takes an entire community to make sure that our schools run, and that includes our support staff in our schools. And so for that, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia, to speak from that perspective. Iran?
Thank you, President Spar. My name is Iran Alicia. I'm a school security officer, currently serving as the president of the Hillsborough School Employees Federation. Anti-public school leaders in the state of Florida continually leave our support personnel out of the conversation. Not only do we have critical shortages in teachers, but we also have critical shortages in bus drivers, student nutrition, custodial staff. Students get to school late because of the critical shortages that we have in bus drivers. Our kitchens have to bring in extra personnel to try to feed our students. Our students deserve better. Our parents deserve better. Our community deserves better. And Governor DeSantis continually leaves us support staff out of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Iran. And now I want to bring up a first-year teacher, so you can hear the perspective from all over our schools here in Florida. And so I'm going to ask Olivia Deloach to come up. She is a first-year teacher from Hernando County. Olivia?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Olivia Deloach. I'm a first-year teacher in Hernando County. And first off, I just wanted to start by saying, as a first-year teacher, I am so incredibly grateful to be a public school teacher. I am so proud to be able to tell people I am, and I truly can't see myself doing anything else. With that, the challenges of being a public school teacher are quite heavy and quite real, especially in today's day and age. And not only do our teachers deserve better, but when you're able to pour more into your teachers, they are able to then use what they have and their resources to pour into their students, which again, we talk a lot about being left out of the conversation. It seems like that seems to be a missing piece, because truly when we can give more to our teachers and our staff, we can give more to those students, which are always the main focus. And a lot of that focus is on pay and money. And while it would be great, I can afford to live, and having more money and adding to my salary would be fantastic, that money that you throw at teachers or hold in front of them does not mask the challenges in the lack of support that they face. Obviously, more money would be great, but there are true, real things happening with teachers handling behaviors, teachers needing support themselves, even outside of the classroom. And that starts from future educators, where I saw myself just a year or two ago, to first years where I find myself now, and to veteran teachers that I get to work with every day. I walk alongside teachers who have been teaching for 20 years, 15 years. While they have more experience, those same challenges are faced from year 1 to year 25, 30. And my students have been and will continue to be the main priority in what I do. And I truly want to continue to make them the priority. And as a first-year teacher and someone who sees myself doing this for a long time, I know that I can only make them a priority if I'm seen as a priority as a staff member. So thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. And so next up, we're going to hear from another teacher, this time from the Panhandle, from Washington County, Kelly Stevenson. Or Walton County, sorry, Walton County.
Thank you, President Spar. Kelly Stevenson, Kelley, Stephenson, from Walton County. Thank you. In the Panhandle. I am a proud public education teacher of 20 years between Ohio, Texas, and now Florida. I am a proud parent to children who attend public schools in Walton County, and I am the president of our local teachers union, Walton County Education Association. This conference is needed because there are things missing. And in Walton County, we have 4 things that we focus on. And the first one is we need a salary so that we can actually take care of our families. I have many teachers who have to work second and third jobs, folding yoga pants for $25 an hour. That's what one of my English teachers did in her spare time. I have someone else who charters a boat. So over the summer, he is chartering a boat every day he can in order to make ends meet. That should not be the case. Teachers should be treated like rock stars. They're not. They're not. The second thing is our healthcare and our insurance. We need to be able to go to a doctor, get our eyes checked, take our kids to the dentist, and have appropriate things for our families. These teachers need to be taken care of. They want to take care of their families. The third thing is that we want to teach and have all the resources that we need in order to actually do that effectively. We want those AP courses. We want those honors courses. We need the right books and curriculum. We need to have access to copy paper. Whole nother story. And then lastly, we want to be appreciated. We just want to be appreciated. We are the professionals in the classroom. We want to be at the table when Governor DeSantis or whoever is going to make these decisions. Come to the teachers. We know what it's like. He's not come to my school. He doesn't know what it's like. We can tell you what it's like. We'll be honest with what it's like if they're ready for that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, from Walton County. And so next, I'm now going to bring up a bus driver from Flagler County, Lakeisha Ayers White. Lakeisha.
Thank you, Mr. Spar. Hello, my name is Lakeisha Ayers White, Lakisha Ayers hyphenated White, WHITE. I am the Vice President of Flagler Education and Support Staff, and I am a school bus driver. The state leadership continues to just talk about teachers. As a support staff, we are continuously left out of the conversation. Support staff is a vital piece that ensures that our students succeed every day. Is first and last to see the students every day. Cafeteria workers are the ones that feed the students breakfast and lunch. Custodial staff are the ones that make sure that the classrooms are clean so the students could succeed and have a clean environment. Paraprofessionals are the ones that assist the students that need the extra support. But yet, this governor continues to leave out support staff out of every conversation. We need our governor to show up and support us like we support our students. One job should be enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakeisha. And so now I'm going to ask a teacher from Polk County and president of the Polk County Education Association, Stephanie Yoakum, to come forward.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Yoakum. I am a 15-year algebra teacher. I am a parent of a child who is going into first grade in his neighborhood public school. And I am elected to represent the 9,000 educational workers in Polk County Public Schools through the Polk Education Association. And when we're in schools every day, because we are in the front lines with our students in public education every day. And when we're in schools with talking to our teachers and our support staff about what's going on, what they're dealing with are behavior issues. They're dealing with little support, little resources, and they are just trying to survive every single day. And we are there and we show up so that our kids get the world-class quality education that our Florida Constitution protects. And we show up every day and we expect our governor and our state legislator to show up for us, yet they haven't. And they continue to work in a silo without talking to real educators on the front lines every day. And so the devil's in the details with the governor's press conference and what he said today, but we need to make sure that teachers and support professionals are at the table talking about what this money might mean for us. Because these are real dollars, and our government has thrown real dollars at public schools, but tied so many strings to it that we are in the situation that we are in today, being 50th out of 51 in the nation in average teacher pay, because they yet again fail to listen to us. So instead of failing to listen to us, bring us to the table so that we can have honest conversations about what is going on and how to fix it.
Thank you, Stephanie. And we're going to move to our final speaker, and then we will entertain any questions that anyone has, which you can do by raising your hand or by putting them in the Q&A section below. But for our last speaker, we have Zaida Pena Andino from Osceola County.
Thank you, President Spark. Fantastic job. Good afternoon. My name is Zaida Pena Andino. ZAHIRAPENA-ANDINO. I work for Osceola County. I am a test coordinator and instructional mentor. I am a 23-year-old veteran and educator, and my base salary right now with a master's degree supplement is $55,000. A first-year teacher in my county as a base salary starts at $49,000. The governor and the legislature said that they have done a lot to help the teachers, but veteran teachers over and over again, like me, are continuously overlooked by the Florida statutes, which are in dire need of revision. The pathway that the legislature and the governor should have been taken is to build one of higher competitive salaries for all educators and support staff, so we can afford to have a good housing, pay our monthly bills, go to the doctor, and not worrying about having to have a second or third job to make ends meet.
this increase of salaries and benefits for our employees will help us focus on our main job, which is serve and educate every student that they can help to reach their goals so they can become more productive and high and educated citizens. We teach our students to be collaborative learners. How about Governor DeSantis, you come and collaborate with us so we can reach our goals and we are not a number 50 in this United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, we will now open it up to questions. Again, you may raise your hand. You may put them in the Q&A below. I will say this as we go into questions. What you heard from everyone today, we just spent a little over 25 minutes hearing from all stakeholders in education. And you heard us talking about students and learning and meeting the needs of the kids who come to our schools. The governor spent 50 minutes today bashing teachers, essentially telling teachers to sit down and shut up. Well, that's not going to happen in Florida. We want to make sure we have world-class schools, and that doesn't happen without the educators, the teachers, the staff who work in our schools, working side by side with parents and students to make sure that every child gets the education they deserve and need. So let's move to questions. And the first one I have, and if you would please tell us who you're with, but the first one I have is, let me do this, to promote you to a staff. Alexandra. It's going to promote you, and then if you'll unmute yourself. I think, yes.
Hi, this is Alexandra Glorioso with the Miami Herald. Thanks so much. Our education reporter is out this week, so I'm stepping in, so please be kind. I had a question about the Miami-Dade Teachers Union, the United Teachers of Dade, and also about the budget, if I could ask those two.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one about the United Dade Teachers Union, is this the only union that's struggling with recertification right now? So could you just say a little bit about that fight and like
Absolutely.
where it stands?
Sure.
I things that they say they are getting recertified, but obviously Governor DeSantis went on about that today. So if you could talk about that and also give us the context of like, are they alone in the state? Like, is this the only county struggling with this? Like, what's the context of that?
Yes, I want to start out by saying none of our unions are struggling. We are faced with a law that is unrealistic and inappropriate. I mean, let's remember that what the governor did with his legislation and what he was talking about today was they took away the rights of teachers and staff who work in our public schools, professors at our universities, and other public employees, except for police and fire, I will point out. But they took away their right to choose how to pay their union dues. Florida has always been what we call a right to work for less state, which means people don't have to belong to their union. But here's what we're seeing so far, right? We are seeing now this threshold move up that at least 60% of those who work in a school district and are part of a bargaining unit must join in order to not have to jump through these hoops that the governor's administration has put forward. Now, I want to point this out. We have 99 local unions in the state of Florida that have petitioned the governor's administration, the Public Employees Relations Commission, for an election that haven't had an election yet. They are so far behind. This goes back to October 1st, and they still have not had an election. We're almost through a year now. Talk about incompetence and not being able to do their job. The governor has failed. His administration has failed to make sure that those processes were put in place. And the cost to taxpayers is unheard of, right? But here's what I can tell you. In the United Teachers of Dade, I'm going to let Antonio come up. They have faced millions of dollars being spent by the governor's allies, by an organization called the Freedom Foundation, which is not at all about freedom, who is an anti-union organization trying to take away the contracts and the voice of educators in not just Miami-Dade, but the state of Florida. They've spent millions of dollars. They had to get 10% of the employees to sign a card to get on the ballot. They barely could do that. So the bottom line here is they know it. And why the governor held this press conference in Miami was because they know that the United Teachers of Dade represents the employees there. They do a great job, and that teachers and staff in Miami-Dade, just like everywhere in this state, want a union. And I will end with this before I turn it over to Antonio to add. We have had 3 elections for teacher unions in the state of Florida since this law went into effect, and over 90% of teachers and staff in those unions voted to keep their union. There's not an issue here. This is the governor's distraction and deflection. Let me have Antonio add to that.
Well, good afternoon. You know, you might have heard me mention a concerted effort going around right now when it comes to education unions in the state of Florida. This governor, the Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, has joined forces with a right-wing think tank out of Seattle, Washington, known as the Freedom Foundation, and created a phony front group in Miami-Dade County known as the Miami-Dade Education Coalition. This is simply an attempt to strip us of our bargaining rights, our collective bargaining, which we've had into the Constitution since 1974. And they've spent the last 20 years trying to figure out ways to eliminate collective bargaining so that people don't have the resources or the manpower that they need to get things done. We know that right now this appears to be collusion, but we're not going anywhere. United Teachers of Dade have been in existence for 50 years now. We have the strongest contract in the state, well over 275 pages in the book, and we will continue to be the bargaining agent representing some 23,000 education professionals in the state of Florida, come hell or high water.
Is it the only county, though, that is dealing with this? Like, I'm just trying to get context of, like, is this unique? Like, this Freedom Foundation fighting union?
So no, this is not unique. Freedom Foundation has been union busting now for well over a decade. We are the only county in the state of Florida, though, that they've actually propped up a phony group to challenge us in that election. So we're the only local in the state of Florida that has what they call an intervener. Now, this intervener was put together by the Freedom Foundation, which our Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, was the keynote speaker at the conference last summer when they hatched this plan. So you would think in the state of Florida that teachers would have support from the Commissioner of Education and the Department of Education, but it's just the opposite. The support is not there. And if you don't understand the value and importance of unions, you need to do a little research, because unions lift the boat for all, not just some of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Alexandra, if you want to have more of a conversation specifically on that, we can connect you and Antonio and others, so you can do that, okay?
That would be great. Could I just ask one more question? Basic question. The budget says this is a $1.25 billion increase, but then also it's a $200 million increase over last year. Could someone just explain that to me? Like, how is it both 1.25 billion, but also 200 million? And can you just address it, like simply, what is it that this is lacking for teachers? Like, why with these increases that his flyer says $4 billion since he took office, why is Florida 50th in the state? Why are teachers working 2 and 3 jobs? Like, why is this money not enough? Like, just talk to me like I'm 5.
Yeah. So first of all, great question, Alexandra. And let me say this. What the governor is talking about is the 25-26 budget. He's going to propose a $1.25 billion increase, which is about $250 million more than what they proposed this year, which was $1 billion. They're aggregating that money. When someone gets a pay raise, he got the pay raise. So to say I've given $4 billion to teacher pay, it's a big number. It sounds good, but what does it mean in practicality? Well, we went from 47th in the nation in average teacher pay to 50th in the nation under this governor. Why? Because it's really not, when you look at the almost 200,000 teachers we have in the state of Florida, it's not sufficient. Number 2, when you look at the fact that the governor has implemented rule after rule, policy after policy, law after law that has interfered with our ability to make sure that all educators are benefiting from this, not just beginning teachers, but veteran teachers, not just teachers, but bus drivers, not just bus drivers, but cafeteria workers. And so the idea that everyone has to be in this in order to make sure that children are successful, you have to address pay. It is the number one reason we are leading the nation in the teacher and staff shortages area. So it really comes down to the governor playing loose with numbers. You know, he's got this fuzzy math thing going on, and he doesn't want anyone speaking out against it. Look, we have to recognize the fact that, as you heard from the educators right here, and as you heard even from our students, that teachers can't afford to be teachers anymore. And all they're asking for is to be paid enough so that they can pay their bills, go to the doctor when they're not feeling well, and do their jobs. And the reality of it is, that's not too much to ask for, but that's not what this governor's focused on. All right. Thank you, Alexandra. We're going to go ahead. I've got Clara, Sophia, Daly. I'm going to bring you into the room now as well. And that may take a second. And if you'll unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I was just curious what the expected starting salary, with the Miami Herald. I was just curious what the expected starting salary is after this increase. We know that it's currently like 48,286, but we're curious what that starting salary will be now.
Yeah, I'm going to let Antonio talk to the specifics of Miami-Dade County, but here's some things I think everyone needs to remember in general. The state law is now that beginning teacher pay has to get to $47,500. We still have some smaller districts in the Panhandle that struggle with funding to get to that level. But I also want to say this, when you look at pay in Florida, it can't just be beginning teacher pay, because it's the experienced teachers, those with 5, 10, 15, 20 years who are walking out the door faster than ever before because their pay is not going up. When you talk about teachers coming in and starting out at 47.5 and they go, well, that's not too bad. And then 5 years later, they're still making 47.5. That's a problem. And that's why they're walking out. So Antonio can speak specifically about the United Teachers of Dade, but this is why we continue to call for a $2.5 billion increase, so we can make sure we're taking care of everyone, not just teachers, not just beginning teachers, but everyone who contributes to making sure that our students are successful. Antonio?
And Antonio, thank you so much for addressing that. And I was also curious if you could address Governor DeSantis' comment today during his, program in Hialeah, where he mentioned that Carla is making $300,000 and, that he wants to ensure that this money does not go towards salaries for union leaders.
Well, first of all, that number is a fabrication. I wish we were making that type of money. But quite frankly, that's not even the state's money. He's talking about whatever it is we're making. My salary as a teacher is my salary as a teacher. I earn, after 30 years, a little over $60,000 in base pay. Thankful to my community in Miami-Dade County, and I'm sure you're familiar with the referendums that we passed both in 2018 and 2022. Today, those referendums allow our teachers to survive. Roughly 30% of some of teachers' income is coming from referendum that the state has no control over. The amount they control over is sending all of us to the poorhouse because we continue to add numbers to the divisors. You know, public education used to be traditional public schools. Over the last 15 years, they've turned public education to mean charter schools. They've turned public education to mean private schools because now they get vouchers with HB1. So as they continue to put money in, the divisor continues to grow and the number that teachers actually get begins to shrink. If you understand what I mean. So the math that they're using is creative math, to say the least, right? You can't continue to count the same money over and over and over. And I'll give you an example. Last year, they said they allocated roughly $200 million for teachers in the state. That's for 67 counties. The referendum in Miami-Dade County alone generates well over $300 million annually for teachers in Miami-Dade County alone. So you do the math. 300,000 for for 23,000 or 17,000 teachers in the state, or 220,000 for over 200,000 teachers across the entire state. The math just does not add up.
And what is the salary of Carla if you said that it's not $300,000?
Carla has a teacher salary of 15 years. She's making less than $60,000 from the state. She makes probably another 60 or so from the union, because we're talking somebody that works 12 months a year, 365 days a year, and basically 24 hours every single day, fighting against the legislature and the governor in which we have today. Much less than she should be making.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clara. And a couple of points I want to clarify before I go to Jason. First of all, what the governor does by throwing out teacher union president's pay and stuff like that, we declare that to our members so they always know what it is. But it's an attempt to try to divide. Let's be honest, right? And it's an attempt to deflect from what he and his cronies make in terms of pay, and why they continue to forget about the fact that Floridians right now are struggling every time they go to the grocery store. Grocery stores like Publix are making record profits, and we can't afford to buy our groceries, right? Let's be real. That's all a deflection. The other thing I wanted to point out is in the governor's press release, which was just brought to my attention, he's saying that in the 24-25 year, there will be a $1.25 billion increase specifically to teacher pay. That is not what is in the budget. Let's be clear on that. The total increase to public schools, much of which will go right out the door to vouchers, or a good chunk of it, is only $1.8 billion. And again, a chunk is going out the door to vouchers. So no, there is not $1.25 billion going to the governor's budget in 24-25. We believe what they intended was to say 25-26, because this year's budget process is already done. And the governor did not propose $1.25 billion going to salaries. So let me go here now to Jason. I'm going to let you in. And if you could go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll certainly look at the questions in the Q&A. Jason, are you there?
Hey, President, sorry.
That's all right.
I've got more of an existential question for you. The governor and Republican lawmakers, they've passed legislation, they've pounded the podium. In your mind, where does this end? I mean, what do you think they want, and what do you want? And do you think there will ever be a day where you all find common ground and kind of hold hands and live in peace with one another?
Well, let me say this. We have asked to meet with the governor. We have asked the State Board of Education and the Commissioner of Education to come with us out into our schools. You heard some of the other folks asking that same request. They have refused to do that. The governor won't sit down and meet with us, even though we have tried. So it's kind of hard to find common ground when all the governor wants to do is hold a press conference with politicians and not with students, not with parents, not with educators who work in our public schools, right? They were all missing from the governor's press conference. It was simply politicians. And then he's saying we're trying to play politics with the public schools. No, we're trying to find solutions. We're ready to roll up our sleeves. And, part of it's got to be, what's wrong with this guy that he won't actually sit down and talk to public school teachers on what they need to be successful? Look, the Commissioner of Education at the last State Board meeting actually said closing public schools is a good thing. He said it's part of the process. Are you kidding me? Neighborhood public schools are vital, essential parts of our community. That's what helps the economy go. And so I don't understand that kind of mentality. We're average workers. We're trying to make ends meet like so many other Floridians. And yet the governor attacks the people who work in our schools, who strive to make a brighter future for this state. I don't know where it ends. We have solutions. Ask any educator. They have solutions. Yeah. And it starts with being honest instead of trying to push a false narrative. It starts by working with us instead of trying to blame us. And it starts with being student-focused instead of constantly bashing those who care so much about kids. The governor has failed, right? He has failed he had a failed presidential run, but he's also failed in dividing parents from teachers. Overwhelmingly, parents still support their public school teachers because they work with us every day. There is not a faculty meeting. There is not a school advisory council meeting. There is not a PTA meeting that happens in this state in which we don't talk about how do we get parents more involved in their child's education. The governor has failed in making sure that students have access to a high-level curriculum. He's pushed book banning. He's pushed the elimination, and you heard earlier, of advanced placement classes. He's pushed a narrative of falsehoods around teaching African-American history, saying that slaves somehow benefited from slavery. I mean, this is crazy. He's bashing the experts, and it makes no sense. And you have to ask, Jason, to your question, I think, is how far is this governor willing to go to make it impossible for the next generation? Because that's what's happening right
now. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So we've got some questions in the chat asking, this is from Mike, asking what metric we are referring to and saying that Florida leads the nation in teacher vacancies. So there's been a lot of reports that have come out, and we'd have to get that information to you, that Florida is among the worst in the nation when it comes to teacher and staff vacancies, and we can get you the specifics on that, Mike. We will get that out. And I will say, for anyone who has questions that we don't get to today, you can always reach out to the Florida Education Association's Communications Department. Kat Gordon, she can connect you with anyone who was on this call if you have specific questions for parents or students or any of the educators who were on this call. And so let me just see if there's other questions in the chat. I know there's some comments. Let's see. I'm just looking, let's see. So in terms of, Nancy, you're asking about how it typically works. So typically when these allocations have come down, we do go to the bargaining table and bargain with school districts. It's required under the Florida Constitution. As much as the governor tries to ignore the Florida Constitution, it does require that salaries be negotiated. And so when we go to the table, we negotiate a whole host of things. And what's interesting, again, you heard the governor say today that we're somehow interfering with that. The union is educators. It's teachers, it's staff. You saw some of them here. And as I pointed out, overwhelmingly, they're voting to keep their union and keep their contract because they know they need that unified voice to be able to ensure a strong contract and to protect their rights and their future so that they can do the jobs they love to do. But what typically happens is we go to the bargaining table and we talk about how to do this. Again, there are over 20 laws that interfere with our ability to do what is best for the school district and the communities that we live and work in. But it goes through a process in which we sit down and try to figure out how can we make sure that everyone is benefiting. And we've asked for the legislature to remove those laws. They did this big bill on deregulation in which they really didn't deregulate anything. In fact, they increased regulation. And I'll point out, as the governor sends these dollars right out the door to people who homeschool their kids or to voucher schools in this state that have zero accountability, we are being burdened with constant regulation, over-regulation as public schools in the state of Florida. And so that's what we want to continue to push back on. And so let me just see if there's any other, Nancy, I'm going to go ahead and bring you in so you can follow up if I did not do that. So Nancy, as soon as you get in, just go ahead and unmute and then you can go forward. Okay, Nancy, you should be able to unmute now.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry if this has been clarified already, but I have questions about what the governor said about approving 1.25 billion in the 24-25 fiscal year budget for teacher pay, because that's what he says, but you guys are saying that that's not the case. So just some clarification there, what he could have meant and what you guys believe.
Yeah, I don't know where he gets that number from. I don't, and they clearly didn't clarify that. But when you look at the budget for this year, there was not $1.25 billion put into teacher salary allocation. Now, a lot of that was collapsed into the overall funding, but that was not the number they were talking about. I actually believe this year they were talking about an increase of about $250 million, about $250 million. So that may be what he was talking about. The increase this year is about $250 million to teacher pay. The overall increase to education spending is about $1.8 billion, of which a good chunk of that, and we don't know how much, will go to homeschooling or voucher schools, again, without any accountability. I'll remind you, there were stories that many of you ran that parents were being allowed to buy annual passes to Disney World, for example, with that homeschooling funding, and they were able to buy big screen TVs for their homes with those dollars that come out of public schools, that are diverted from public schools. And when the legislature proposed to fix that, the governor came out against it, and they ultimately didn't do that. So this is not a governor who's looking for accountability and ensuring equity among students in the state of Florida. This is a governor whose aim is to shut down public schools and undermine the education of our children. And so with that, I believe that was the last question we had. So again, we want to thank you all. If you have one more question, can someone talk a little bit about salary compression? I will gladly talk about salary compression. Thank you, Jason. So salary compression is what we've been dealing with under this governor, and it's part of why average teacher pay has fallen in Florida. I'll give you a great example. A teacher with 25 years of experience in a county in Florida, and this is not an anomaly, this is unfortunately the norm, but a teacher with 25 years of experience in a county in Florida in 2010 was paid $60,000 in 2010. In that same county, this year, a teacher with 25 years of experience was paid $58,000. That's $2,000 less. And we've had this thing called inflation that the governor often talks about. And so that is one example of compression. Another example of compression in one county, for example, they were talking about bus drivers. And for the first 13 years in that county, all the bus drivers are paid the same amount of money, which was $15 an hour. It was one of our small rural counties. $15 an hour for every bus driver in that county for their first 13 years. That's compression. Teachers in some counties, we have a county, again, a smaller rural county, where teachers there for their first 22 years are all paid $45,000 plus dollars, which because they haven't gotten to the 47.5 yet. And so again, for 20 some odd years, they're all paid the same amount of money. So those are examples of what we've seen around the state of compression, how we've fought compression in some areas, like what they've done in Miami. United Teachers of Dade led the charge, and voters agreed, fund our schools. And so they passed a referendum that allows for us to compensate for some of that and try to fix that. I mean, we've had referendum in a lot of counties. Almost half the counties in Florida have passed referendums to increase the pay of teachers and staff because they recognize that this administration has failed to do so. So again, I'll end with where we started. This governor has put out a narrative that just is not supported by facts. And when you look at the facts, it shows that the governor is dead wrong. And he continues to try and push that narrative by deflecting and blaming others. I agree with the governor. We shouldn't have politics in public education. So let's not do partisan school board elections, and let's stop with the politics. And governor, let us come meet with you. Let's roll up our sleeves together. Let's solve the problems. To the commissioner and the State Board of Education, take up our request to come speak with you, and take up our request to come with us into the schools and see what's happening in real time. Let's not make it up anymore. Let's not pat ourselves on the back as they have done to do supposedly doing such a great job. Let's just work on making it better, and let's do it together. Thank you, everyone.